Hey everybody, it's Dave, Cooper, and Jennifer. How are you today?
Hi, everyone.
So listen, we are back for another episode of Building Modular, trying to start these live feeds with something a little bit more interaction than just a still that says, hey, starting shortly. Because, one of the things that we have done in our lives is build a lot of modular building projects, whether it's single family, multifamily, commercial, it's like vice versa. Sorry, I got my video playing over here. So with that said, today, Jen, we have another presentation that we're going to do, which is going to be great. And a quick shout out to anybody that's new. If you're new to this and this is your first time joining us today, please just type in the comment section, hey, new, this is your first time joining us. It'd be great. And also let us know where you're joining us from today. We've had people from the UK, Ireland, Australia. I think we had Philippines once. China. So we have people coming in from all over. So it would be really, really great to know where you're tuning in from. And as always, ask questions. These are supposed to be interactive live feeds. This is your opportunity to ask us anything you want to ask us, whether it's modular related or not. We prefer modular related, but hey, bring it on. Good, bad, or indifferent, we're ready for it. We want to have a little bit of fun here. So if you have some trivia on modular, you can put that out in the comments as well. So Jennifer, let me pull up our presentation for today and take off our ticker here that says starting shortly, because that's just plain out lie. We're going now.
we're on.
There we are.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. So thanks everyone for tuning in. We've been doing this for, can you believe it, 5 weeks now. So this is episode 5. And what we've been doing is breaking down the modular construction process and really talking about what it takes to get your project designed and construction ready for finish.
That's right.
And so today, last week we talked about design. This week we're getting into the dirt. So we're exiting the pre-construction phase, if you will, and moving into the construction phase of modular construction.
We are. So we're going from design to dirt. Is that what you want to say? Design to dirt. There it is. Got it up now. Got it running. All right.
Yeah. So episode 1, we just basically talked about what is modular.
I'm on episode 3. Hold on.
I know. Episode, oh my gosh, you're flying everywhere. You can keep going. So episode 1, we talked about what is modular. Episode 2, we talked about designing into a modular project, so a project using modular construction, and how it varies from, designing into something that might be built on site. And episode 3, we talked about engineering and permitting.
We did.
Zoning regulations, lot requirements, site plan, all the different elements that you need to incorporate in any home that is being designed and built. Yeah,
the devil is in the detail. And that's one of the things we keep pointing out through this whole process, right? Especially with offsite construction. So
for sure.
I think everything that we've covered over the last few weeks has been, kind of just like an overview of all the different moving parts. But if you're new to modular, you're trying to understand modular, whether you're a builder, a supplier, somebody looking to get into offsite or modular, this is just a high view of what it is. And then moving on, after we get something built on paper here, like we're doing, we're going to eventually get into more and more fine details. And we want to, as always, like I said, if you have questions, let's ask them. If you are a builder out there and you build modular, what is the biggest hurdle you had to get over?
Right.
What is the biggest hurdle as a modular builder that you had to actually get over when you started in this process? We'd love to hear that. In fact, I'm going to put it up on the banner, Jennifer, just so people joining us, that'll be the question.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, because we have a lot of people who are interested in maybe trying this. They're not sure how to get started, what to do, who to talk to. And there are plenty of folks who are, in the world of modular construction who didn't always, start there. They didn't start there. They started from traditional on-site construction. And for several of the folks who have come over to off-site construction, we've heard them say things like, I'd never go back. It's just a smarter way to build. It's a more efficient way to build. It's, it's the better way.
It is the better way.
Well, we like to think so.
Yeah. No, I believe it. Not think it. Right. I believe it. So there you have it, everybody. I have the question up on the screen. We are going to answer questions throughout this episode. So again, if you're joining us, please like and share. It would really be great. Sharing the video right now will help grow our audience. And to us, that's really important. And we really appreciate everybody tuning in. Diana Fissler from Colorado is there. We have Anthony Good tuning in. Hey,
Nice.
Anthony, you are becoming a regular. In fact, I really appreciate the support, or I should say we really appreciate the support. And I hope you're learning something from it each time. And I'm assuming that's why you come back. So if you're out there, please hit that like button, love button, clap button, brain button, whatever those are, and we're going to get going here.
Yeah,
All right.
for sure. So after engineering permits, we did talk about the design selections process. So that's what we spent last week on.
We did.
How do you really engage with your clients and give them world-class service? You know, one of the big misperceptions out there, the big myths, is that you can't customize a home built using modular construction. And it's so not true. It's so not true. It's all about the selections that builder wants to offer. It's all about finding the factory you can partner with to deliver on those selections,
Right.
and go from there. So yeah, we hear it all the time. In fact, the Building Systems Council offers up awards in good home design, and it's unbelievable some of the homes that are being built.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, it's amazing. Modular is not what most people think it is today. It's not your cookie cutter boxy type home that it used to be. And well, I think it's a lot of fun. And I think that when people really, really start grasping it and understanding it, it'll be even better. Oh, let's not forget next week.
Oh,
Next week is actually, we're going to be talking about setting modular homes and the process and what happens getting the house to the site. And what's really cool about this is I am going to be in Long Island, New York with the Axis Construction Group and ModLogic. Thank you. And we're doing a set for a hospital down there. And we're going to keep our social distancing, and I might have to do this whole thing with a mask on, but this is a really, really big deal. We're going to be bringing to you live. Hopefully you'll be able to see in the background, if we don't mess up the technology part of this, trying to stream it from another job site while somebody else is here. But yeah, we're going to talk all about that live in front of an actual set.
Yeah. And what's so cool is today we're talking about, releasing the home, ordering the home from the factory and getting it to the home site. And next week we were planning to talk about the set anyway.
Right.
And it's just so perfect that we'll actually be doing that from a live set. So super cool. And definitely don't want to miss last week. And that'll take us off now into where we're what we're going to cover
Episode
today.
5, construction phase, release to delivery.
Right.
How do you want to start?
Well, I mean, let's talk about what release is, because that's one of those industry terms. Maybe not everybody knows what it is.
I agree.
So, you're the expert over here when you talk about release. Help the audience understand.
So let me pull this off here. So when we get into releasing a house for production, that's basically the point where we said, hey, we've gone through the entire design process. We've gone through zoning. We've gone through permitting, right? The customer has made all of their choices. We hope, right? It's not always that easy. So release for production means, hey, we have a permit, whether it's a foundation permit in hand or construction permit. We are now going to give the manufacturing facility the order to start building this home. So when we say release for production, that's exactly what it means. We have a permit. We're going to release this house for production. But what happens at the same time we do that? We start site work.
So this is where the huge efficiency really is gained in offsite construction, especially with modular construction. So there's 2 parallel paths that happen here. As we release this home for the factory to start construction in a controlled environment, at the same time that site work is being complete. So that's where you see the financial gains, the time savings, really the true efficiencies of offsite construction come into play.
Yeah, it really is. So imagine like traditional construction, you get a permit, then your dozer shows up, right? You start clearing land, you put in your silt fence, you get everything prepped for it. But with this type of construction offsite, that stuff still happens in that order.
Right.
But the difference is our home or our structure or our building is being built at the same time in a controlled environment. And so you're picking up all that speed of getting to, top of plate up, as we call it in the industry, foundation up, if you're not familiar with that. So yeah, I mean, we're shaving weeks and weeks and weeks off of the actual build time just in that process alone.
Right. And again, if you're just tuning in and you're thinking about this right now, where we are in the world, this is a huge opportunity to make up lost ground, because we've lost a couple of weeks now with, the pandemic and everything else. And by moving into modular construction, you can actually pick up time on the projects once they do fully release. And, if you're lucky enough to still be building right now, certainly a way to think about it. And if you're not building right now, it's a great time to be doing research and understanding, how do I get into this? How do I make this happen?
Right.
And as we're going through, it would be really helpful too for people who are new to construction in general. When we're talking about knee walls and sill plates and all of that, just helping everybody understand what that really means and how that comes together.
Yeah, definitely. So, and put it in the comments. Again, like I said, we want this to be interactive. So if we say something you don't understand, no question is a dumb question, as my dad and grandparents and everybody else's parents have told them, but sometimes it feels like it is.
Right.
All right. So let's hop into it, Jennifer. Let's see. Go back to this.
So we talked about the planning process with modular construction, and we're not out of that planning process quite yet. This is where all of those double checks and triple checks really come into play and become extremely important, because as you're getting your client ready to make the commitment financially, emotionally, and everything else, now's a good time to really be double checking and triple checking your paperwork, because what you order from the factory is what you're getting.
Yeah. 99.9% of the time, that's exactly it. This process of the pre-order check that we go through is so detailed, that you have to really pull the entire team together. I know, it just depends on what your company's process is and how you do it, but it is so important to have the designers, the color designer on board, the construction manager on board, drafting on board, to go through the document and all the paperwork with a fine tooth comb, because it's the little things on paper in offsite construction that's going to haunt you in the field, especially because, you have your internal process that you've worked on, but the factory has their breakdown process as well. So, I mean, you could elaborate on, you said in a lot of these meetings with different clients across the country. I mean, it's so detailed, but yet it's very rewarding when everything comes to the site and it's, pretty accurate.
It is. I mean, depending on who you are and what you're building, your organization might use many different documents to convey information both to the client and to the factory. And like Dave is saying, what you want to do is get the people who are putting those documents together, whether that's your investment summary, we like to call it, the pricing document that you show to the client, your construction documents, obviously, your order form from the factory. The factory is going to have their paperwork as well. And all of your design selections. So the faucets, the tile, the flooring, like wherever you track all of that information, this is where you need to bring all of these documents together and really make sure that they match, that you don't have conflicting information anywhere. And if you're lucky enough to be a single source document organization where one document in your organization takes the lead, and that's, everything you live and breathe by, well, then you just need to go through that document and, really with a fine tooth comb and make sure that nothing is left up for question, because what you don't want to happen is the guys or the team in the factory get the set of plans and have a question.
Yeah, for sure. And that's a great thing, to bring up. If anybody's out there and knows of a single source document specifically geared towards offsite modular construction, love to hear from you. There's very few that were out there, but there's more and more people coming on board. Moducore, I think there's some other ones out there, but the industry is changing very quick, and I think it'd be really great to hear from you if you're using a single source document that is a workflow, not only in your office, but through the manufacturing process all the way to the field. Would love reach out, love to hear it. So
absolutely.
Let's go through our list of things here, Jennifer. So, one is, can this be built the way it is drawn? We just kind of talked about that. We got to make sure all the measurements and everything are exactly how they want to be. Modular portion, site built components, unfinished spaces. Why are we talking about unfinished spaces?
Right. I mean, this is super important, especially as it relates to basements, right? And you'll talk about this when we get into the foundation. But if your client, has a future use for that basement, you want to make sure those plumbing fixtures are located in the foundation plan, even if they may not be finishing that basement right now. And same thing with the attic or space above the garage. If there is a future use intended for those spaces and there's power or water or plumbing requirements in those spaces, even though you may not be installing them right now or doing that work right now, you got to get them on the plans. Yeah,
absolutely. So in this process, it's all about the details. Make sure you understand everything, not just the modular portion, but like you said, the basement portion as well, because you have radon pipes, you got all these different things that are coming up through the house. You want to make sure that's all lined up according to the way that everything's laid out and designed. So review where the service locations are coming into the house. So for you, those of you that may not know what that means, that's your plumbing, your electric, your sewer, right? Where are they coming in? Make sure it all lines up so you don't have to have a 3-mile run through the basement of your plumbing pipes and your stacks. Exactly. So we talked about that. And then again, review plans, job budgets, cost estimates. That's all part of this pre-release and why we said we have to have the project managers and everybody in this team meeting to pay attention to the details.
And all your people who are answering the questions are right there. And really it's a meeting of the minds, and it's a handoff to some degree too, because, your home building consultant, your sales team, your design center coordinator, whoever is touching the client last now is the handoff to the field.
That's right. Yeah.
So you're also passing along information like, they have 4 kids, they have, real information about the clients. They have a dog that barks, whatever those nuances, like this is a good time to transfer that information as well.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. All right. So listen, we're into now understanding also not just the construction documents, but the big picture here is people want to get paid for what they do.
100%.
So we have to make sure that the bank is all lined up for everything that we're doing, and making sure that paperwork is in place and they understand the schedule of all of this, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. And we are going to talk about finances in a deeper dive in a future episode. But if the bank that your client has chosen to work with hasn't actively done a project using modular construction, there may need to be a little bit of an educational conversation around that. Our experience has been, and other builders that we've worked with, has been that our bankers actually love modular construction.
Yeah, they do. I mean, fortunate enough over the years, we started out in the Northeast, and it's becoming more prevalent across the country now with other builders. But the banks have really grasped offsite modular construction in the Northeast. It's been around up here for a long time, and most of the banks have a program in place to do this. So make sure your finances in place. Make sure you double check your permits are what they say they are, because every area is different. Some issue only just a foundation permit. That means you cannot put your house on it until they inspect that foundation. And set up the closing with the bank was the last thing we had there.
Yeah. So now we're ready to press play, right? Now we did all of our double checks and we're ready to place that order with the factory. Dave, no one knows this better than you, right? In terms of what needs to be confirmed next.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, there's a whole bunch of things that come into play. One, we have to double check that everything in the field is happening and the foundation's going to be in place. Everything's going to be exactly, set up the way it needs to be set up. And everybody in the field knows that, hey, we're press and play. This house is going to show up in 7 weeks. We need to be ready. And that's what starts the timeline of events.
Right.
So that's really the big thing. We get a permit in hand. Permit's very important here, because you do not want to have the factory build a house and you don't have your permit because you thought you would get your permit, because they have a thing called demurrage. Demurrage is, say that word. Yeah.
Yeah.
The
no.
mirages.
We're just going to call them holding charges.
Holding
You know,
charges.
if the factory builds the home and you're not
Yep.
ready for it, just be on the lookout for some fees that may be charged to you and your organization for holding those modules in the yard, and holding up the trailers as well that it might be sitting on. So really, as you're releasing the order, you want to be working with the factory on delivery dates. You want to be talking to the crane crew, your set crew, and why traffic control?
So, all right, it just depends on where you live and where this is being built, but there's a lot of areas in urban areas where you are going to need police escorts. They're going to need to close down the road. It's just the way it is. Or if they're super wide loads and you're going through a high traffic area, they're going to want to have police escorts. So there's a whole ballet, and I use that a lot in my conversations, ballet of coordination that has to happen to be ready in this delivery time frame of 7 weeks. So with that said, everything that needs to happen, one is your field super or yourself or whoever needs to be checking on the site and getting with all the trades, making sure everybody gets put in the timeline. Because once that house comes, that's the beauty of modular. We know it's setting on Monday. Well, guess what? We know our HVAC guy can be in there on this day and our plumbing guy can be in here on this date. You can have a set schedule and you're not being held up. But you also have to make sure that the mason guy, the mason is there and getting that foundation and double checking it, making sure it's square, everything's ready to go. But the whole idea of this is pre-construction.
Absolutely.
Power companies, as you're seeing there, there's so many moving parts here.
Yeah. And you know what? We believe in checklists. And once you do this once, twice, 3 times, 100 times, it doesn't matter. We still believe in the checklists. We have, pretty much checklists for everything. And we also talked in an earlier episode way in the beginning that we do a lot, what we call, or what most builders might call a lot inspection, where even in the very early stages of design, somebody goes out to the site, checks the roads, checks the, the directions in terms of how the trucks can get there. Sometimes you may want to think about doing a second lot inspection when you're releasing, just to make sure nothing changed or you didn't miss anything. And, where the power is coming in, you can visually confirm that.
Well, you have to. I mean, sometimes there's tree clearing or road clearing where there's branches too low. You need to go back out and make sure that was done. You don't want to be dealing with that when you have a crane sitting on site and you're trying to bring these units in. So super, super important. Just coordinate with all the trades. You got to coordinate in-house. And make sure everybody is on the same page. And something that we really, really need to point out is production drawings versus permit drawings.
Oh, yeah.
So, a lot of times you're going to get a permitted set that you can give to the building department, but the factory is not building typically off that permitted stamped set. They have what they call production drawings. And sometimes during this release process, there's some tweaks or changes that happen. We always give our trades the production drawings and tell them, yes, we need the permit set on site for the building inspector, but we work off the production drawing. So have a process in place when that last production drawing comes out. All of your trades, all of the employees, everybody knows that's the drawing we use, not the one with the steel on it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you definitely want a set of those drawings on site as well, clearly marked. Take a huge black Sharpie, write all over it and indicate which set of plans the trades should be referencing. And again, this is where cloud-based software really comes into play. We've talked to so many people out there who use CoConstruct, BuilderTrend, some of these other cloud-based programs that help you build out this timeline, help you create this checklist that you're literally just tweaking time and time again. You don't have to recreate the wheel. The first one can be a little labor intensive, but after that, you have it. You have the bones, just like you have the bones of your structure in those early design meetings. You have the bones of your Gantt chart or your flow chart, your production schedule, essentially.
Yeah, I think, one of these times we'll actually put it up there and we show you the list and, it hurts me. I can't stand spreadsheets and numbers. So I need a lot of help with that stuff. But when you're on the job site, it is so
Mhm.
easy to walk up and look at the day and the date and where you're at. Plus, all the trades can look at it. It's a beautiful thing to have.
And you can set up those critical paths. And we're jumping ahead a little bit here, but one of the things that we didn't really talk about, although it's on the slide, you can leave it here, is just power. Having a plan for power in the house, because the sooner that you get that power on,
That's right,
the sooner that you can really start rocking and rolling.
There's a lot of builders out. Well, we don't do temporary power and this and that. All right, well, that's good and well if you have a really great relationship with the power company and they're going to show up that next day and do something for you. But if you really want the efficiencies of offsite construction, or you just want to mess around with generators and gas all the time, one way you're paying for temporary power, one way or the other, depending on the time of year. But I do know, I mean, it can take a month sometimes for utility companies to hook somebody up there, or 2 months, depending on where you live in the country. So temporary power, temporary power, temporary power. If you can get that in, it speeds up your job like no other.
Absolutely. And just queuing it up with your homeowner too, that the minute that house is set, and again, we're jumping ahead of here, call the power company, because you just don't know how long it'll take, especially in today's world. You just don't know how long it will take to get the power company out there. So drill that one home. That's a big one.
Yeah, for sure. So are we jumping ahead now? Am I too far?
Ahead. No, go.
Yeah. Hey, so listen, if you're just joining us, please hit that like and share button. It's always great to grow our audience. And again, we're asking questions today. So I just want to, I know some other people have joined, coming in and out. What hurdles have you had entering modular offsite construction is the question. Also, what fears do you have of entering modular construction? That's another one we should put up there. I'll make that banner as we get talking. What fears do you have? Why aren't you in offsite construction? Let's talk about it in the Q&A here in about probably 10 minutes from now. We'll be able to hit that Q&A and keep going. So.
Yeah, well, I'll just interject with a quick fear, because, for me, my whole family is traditional site builders, framers, post and beam, although that, you could say is offsite construction. But, family dinners in the beginning were a little bit uncomfortable. Remember that?
Yeah. Yes, they were. But I like anything else, people grow and they get further in their mind and they start understanding things. It really changes a lot.
Yeah. And, one of these days we'll get them over to our side.
They're coming fast. Actually, they're going to be forced into it.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk about the foundation.
All right. So on this particular house, actually, Jen, this is something we did years and years ago, but this was actually a Superior Walls foundation.
Oh my gosh. Does it get better than that?
It doesn't. I don't know. Is anybody out there? Give me a thumbs up if you've used Superior Walls before, or have used any type of prefab concrete wall. To me, I mean, it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. Sliced bread still wins, but I mean, Superior Walls that we use, it's awesome. And I am going to say this very, very clearly. It's awesome if you do the install right.
Yeah. Well, do you want to share your story?
Which one?
the townhouse project in Rutherford, New Jersey.
Oh, all right. Here's the value in offsite construction, especially with Superior Walls. We had a project in Rutherford, New Jersey. I mean, this is going back probably 12 years ago, 15 years ago. Big townhouse project. And the civil engineer, if you're a civil engineer, don't take this the wrong way, actually had our footprint off by 4 inches. And this was in Rutherford. If you know Rutherford, it's right out of Manhattan. So it's high density. We had to move. It was close to, I think, 6,000 square feet of foundation. Think of that.
4 inches.
4 inches. They made us move it.
Well, I mean, that's. And
you wonder why I don't have hair.
I know. To a couple of things. The whole modular by design is meant to be put together and taken apart. So we were super fortunate that everyone agreed to use precast on that project. Right. Number one. Number two, it was an indication of at that time how regulatory the process was. Again, it was a high density location, and really it didn't slow us down. We got everybody back on the job site and made it all happen. And now when we drive by, we just kind of, it's a proud moment that everything came together, and the trees are all grown in, and it's a beautiful project.
Yeah, it was a beautiful project. I mean, that building was all combined close to, I think, 16,000 square feet. You know, it was 4 stories. So, I mean, it was a great project, but we were able to actually take it apart, move it over. So that's why I've been in love with Superior Walls ever since. It really saved our hide, and it was no fault of ours. The civil engineering firm, paid the cost. They were happy to pay that cost. It was just another extra day of crane time and some set crew time. So perfect. Let's keep moving here. So we were talking about foundation, under slab plumbing. Now remember, everybody, we're building this in the factory already. We're building it in the factory. So guess what's happening? All of our rough plumbing stubs, everything's in the wall. So if you're going to have under, basement bathroom or radon pipes coming up, if you're in a high radon area, washer and dryer in the basement, any of those, dog wash, any of those things, even for your furnace and mechanicals, you need to understand where that's going to be placed in the basement, under the slab, on the slab, whatever it's going to be. And you need to take that and match it to the house. Because here's a very, very important thing. The factory does not necessarily care about what's happening in the basement. Not saying all of them. They care about what they're building, and that's from the top of the foundation up. It's your responsibility for that, but also to make sure that you understand what's happening downstairs and does the measurements all line up to where things are going.
Yeah. And you know what, with all of this, it's again, so important that you have those foundation drawings, that you have that full set of production drawings on site, so that everybody is double and triple checking, even once you get on site, because you don't want your trade partners in conflict, having different information on site, especially if the PM or the construction manager isn't there to really handhold them through the process. If you're using outside contractors, you really need to make sure that everybody's on the same page. And even now, what's so great is that you can do these production drawing reviews digitally. You don't have to have an on-site construction meeting anymore. Everything can be online. You can set up a Zoom call. You can walk through the production drawings.
Live feed.
You can record that Zoom call and people could replay it. It's a new day. It's totally a new day.
That's what we should do. Let's get somebody out there. Let's do a live feed of your release to production meeting.
Oh my gosh. Well, I'm not sure.
Maybe next time. I'm ready for it. I don't know if the rest of the world's ready for that yet. So, but the other thing that was on that last one is just making sure that your knee walls and your grading and your concrete, everything needs to be in place. If you're doing a steel beam across there, make sure your plate's on the beams, the piece of wood, if anybody doesn't understand what plate is. All of this has to be ready, because you don't want to be fudging with any of this during the set day. You just want the crane there. You want the units to show up. We want to start putting modules on the foundation. It'll make things so much smoother and faster for you.
So you brought up a really great point, and it's something that we're seeing more and more clients move to, is that steel beam. What does that steel beam do? What if you don't use a steel beam? What do you need?
So, I mean, typically, if you don't use a steel beam, you're going to have a bunch of lolly columns. So if anybody goes in the basement and you know what a lolly column is, it's that steel post that comes down in the middle of the floor. And it's always in the wrong location when you're trying to do something in your basement, or you're playing with the kids and you turn around and you smack it. Not that that's happened.
I know.
But, that's really what it is. So a lot of people, to get wider spans in the house, in the basement, they're going to put a piece of steel down there, and that's going to take them from 4, 5, 6 foot spans to further spans. Now, the steel beam size and all that's going to vary depending on the weight loads in the, the house. A 2 stories obviously going to take a bigger beam with weight loads than, a single story.
Right. And in terms of partners who can help figure that out, I mean, obviously there are the engineers that you work with. And oftentimes what we have found is that the builder needs to be in charge of making sure that steel beam is there when it's needed, because that's something you can't have arrive a day late.
That's right. I mean, in fact, it has to be there a couple of days early. And if the steel company doesn't put it in, you can pre-plan with the crane company to make that happen early in the morning. But that means probably getting that crane there the night before. So people really understand, at least in the worlds we've always worked in, crane time, when you say I want 8 hours, well, that includes them driving to the site and leaving the site. So that means, they're either trying to get there before rush hour, and most of them can't travel during rush hour, or after rush hour. So the whole idea of getting them in and getting out is super important, because if you're there at 5 and they're going to leave at 5 and sit in rush hour, you're paying for that.
Yeah. And you know what, Dave, how do you figure out what type of crane you need and the set crew? Like, how do you figure that out? Because that's one thing that is very different than traditional on-site construction.
That's really probably better for a whole nother conversation, because understanding weight loads, what the actual reach of the boom is for the crane, there's a lot of variables go in this, and it all starts with the actual house itself. You know, what are the weight loads? But also, you know, if you're doing, if you have like a superior walls, this is one of the things about superior walls, you're going to be set back with your crane further because you can't backfill that right now, which will require you to have a larger crane. So there's a whole bunch of variables on that. But I mean, you can do a house set with a 60-ton crane. We average somewhere probably between 90 ton and 110 ton for most of our jobs. We go higher than that on commercial jobs, hotels, things like that for sure. But on traditional residential construction and light commercial, that's about where you're going to be.
Yeah. So if you're out there and you're watching this and you'd like to learn more about how to pick the right crane, who can help you figure out the crane size, and who can help you figure out the set crew, because like I said, these components are very different. Just shoot us a note in the comments, send us a message, and let us know, because maybe this is another thing that we do a deeper dive on in round 2. So
I agree. I'm putting my question up. I said I was going to put, why are you hesitant to enter the module?
Yeah,
if I spell something wrong,
check your spelling.
Horrible. I know. I'm horrible.
All right. And again, this is, you know, because of the timing and because of the sequencing of events, you know, with your crane, with your set crew, traffic control, you know, you've already set this up when you released the home for production. You already, you know, made all those phone calls and got those dates on everybody's calendar. 1 week, 10 days before the set date, call everybody again, reconfirm, make sure, you know, there's no hiccups with daylight savings time or anything like that. You know, from a sequencing perspective, these are things you really need to be in front of and can't miss.
All right. I think I keep messing it up.
Oh my goodness.
All right. I'll keep working on that.
All right.
All right. So let me put this up here. This is the fun part. Damn. Love it.
Yeah, so this is where we get to the house delivery. And, you know, this is one of the more typical photos of how you want things to go, right? Bucolic location, easy to get to, relatively flat location. We did need to do some grading here. But, you know, it does get more complicated, and using offsite construction allows you to get more complicated with the locations that you're servicing. For example, private islands, resort islands, where your build time is really limited, where they don't want you interrupting the summer months with construction. You know, downtown Manhattan, high density locations. These are places where offsite construction really wins.
Yeah, it really does. The beach, you know, like you said, you know, coastal, just because they make their money on tourism. You know, we've done several projects on islands, private islands. We've used barges to get these houses there. But there's seasons.
Right.
And you trying to get a house on a ferry or a barge at certain times of the years. I mean, they make their money on tourism.
Forget it.
Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard. So, yeah, 100%. So again, in the prep of your property and the preparation of the foundation, the other really important thing is where's the crane going?
Right.
You need to understand what the setup is and what we call staging. And we didn't talk about that earlier. And so I think it's wise we talk about that. Part of this pre-delivery phase is staging.
Right.
Now, I'll give you a couple of tips. People, you know, when you live in a high density area, it's hard to find places to put, you know, these modules. They are big. So churches, of course, most of them say, well, if you'd like to make a donation,
oh my goodness,
you can do that, right? But it works, you know, $100 goes a long way, but it gives you a secure place to put it. Parking lots, shopping centers, you know, there's all kinds of things out there. So you just have to be a little bit creative. Go to the town hall. I always say, go to the town hall, because there's parks, there's things going on where they'll allow you to actually, you know, stage your units from, which is really important. Now, if you live out in central Pennsylvania or Utah or in Nevada, yeah, I mean, you probably have all the space in the world. So you just have to get a little bit creative, but staging is very important. Placement of that crane is very important.
Right.
You don't want to have to be moving the crane, and you want to make as little movements with the modules as you can, so it's efficient and quick, and you can move efficiently.
Yeah. And you know what? Another fast fact that we should consider as well. If your lot is complex, if there are any issues, if you've been hit with a spring rainfall that has turned your roadways to mush, something that you may want to have on hand is a bulldozer.
Yeah.
Because we've seen some of these trailers, you know, I hate to say it, but sometimes they do get stuck or there's a tight turn. Sometimes we intentionally plan for the dozer to come in and drag the
Drag's the wrong word.
Yeah, no, I shouldn't use that, right?
Yeah, we just rip it through the field. No, but so it depends on your manufacturer. So that's a good point. If you have a big open lot, it's usually not a problem. If you are in a field, and we've been on several sites in across the country, and that field gets wet and it's due in the morning and you're coming in on a little bit of slope, they will slide. You have to really understand what you're doing. Mm-hmm. Once these things get moving, they're not stopping. You're not putting your hand on and holding it. But what you were saying with the dozers, sometimes these 18-wheelers that are pulling these things, if they don't have short trucks, they're long. So you take 20, 30 feet of 18-wheeler, and then you put another 50 to 70 feet of module behind it. Right. You are not making hairpin turns. Yeah. So a bulldozer can make a sharp turn and pull, and you can also use the bucket of a big loader to actually inch the back of it around if you need to get in somewhere. So right. There's just a little bit of tip, and guess what? More than likely, you won't have any cracking in your walls. That's amazing, right?
I know.
That's how well these are built.
It's designed to be transported for sure. So,
all right. So with that, you got to confirm the dates of the delivery. You got to make sure the crane's going to be there. You have to also make sure the set crew is going to be there. Most times, that the set crews are not the factory set crew. Some factories now have that.
Right.
But that's a whole nother story on how we handle set crews in factories, and that's getting into the trenches a little bit.
Yeah. And your steel beam, if you're using a steel beam, you've got to reconfirm that will be on site the day of the set.
Yeah. 100%. Steel beam.
All right. What's next?
All right. Frequently asked questions. I don't have the staff to do all of these reviews. Do they really need to be done? Well, what do you think?
No, they really don't need to be done, but we strongly recommend that you do them because what you put in is what you'll get out, and mistakes on paper are so much cheaper than mistakes on site.
That's right.
So it's a mind shift, right? It's like wrapping your head around having to go through and double check. It's like going to the grocery store. You can either go in with a list and be very targeted, or you can go in without a list and come home with everything or nothing that you really need.
Everything or nothing at all.
Yeah. So it's effort in, effort out. We find that the more planful you are, the more meaningful you are in creating those checklists, the better they serve you down the road.
Yeah, 100%. I'll say it again. Devil's in the detail.
Yeah,
it really is in this type of construction. It's in any construction, but in this one, you better have some detail.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, here we go. Myths. I think we're into the myths. Common myths. If there is a mistake, it's the factory's fault. Now, we just had this conversation with a builder, right? And I went through the whole punch list of everything, and it was, you know what it was? We had a plumbing pipe coming down on top of the foundation, but in that foundation was the hopper window.
Oh, gosh.
So the plumbing pipe was coming down from upstairs and they had the hopper window. So again, this is getting back to the factory's not looking at your foundation like you're looking at your foundation. And so, they were upset because they thought the factory got it wrong. But again, the factory has nothing to do with your site work. Typically, they have from top of plate up. And there's always something, if it's on your plans and it's in your details that you work with the factories on, then it's the factory's fault if it doesn't meet what we signed off on.
Right.
But, if they miss something, then it falls on you as well. And it kind of, and I have a beef with this because, hey, I'm the customer, I'm placing an order. They need to get it right. That's the mentality. But there's a lot of moving parts in this. They are teammates. They are teammates, and if you learn to work with them as they're your teammate, you're going to have a much better product and project because you're both going to be learning back and forth. And as you do a lot of projects, they're going to know anyhow. You start getting a system on what your specs are, what you build like, and so forth.
Right.
So, all right, what do we have next? How is it different? What you ordered is what you should get. That's kind of the same thing we just talked about in a way, right? I went too fast.
Yeah,
too far.
No, it is, but it isn't. So the difference is with traditional on-site construction, oftentimes, or I shouldn't say this, what could happen is changes get made on site. Change orders happen. A client thinks, is walking through and they're like, I really want this window 6 inches to the left, or can you make these windows higher? Because I just realized that I, purchased an oversized couch or whatever it might be. So with offsite construction, with modular construction, that's one luxury that you don't have, right?
Yep.
You really need to be super clear on what it is on paper, because that is what you're going to get. So like Dave was saying, if that plumbing drop is into that hopper window, that is what you're going to get. The should is in parentheses because, listen, sometimes mistakes do happen.
That's right.
And sometimes people do get it wrong. And sometimes when you order something online, right, you're on Amazon and you thought you hit the red the red sweater and you got the blue sweater. Well, what happened? Did you really order the red one, or did
you get the blue one? Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's very true, but that's where the partnership comes in. And if you have a good relationship with your factory, they are going to work with you to resolve that.
Absolutely.
And that's the brilliant part about it. A lot of these factories have hundreds and hundreds of employees. They have service crews. You are not an island on your own, but if you treat yourself like an island on your own, you can probably expect the same treatment from your manufacturer.
Absolutely.
All right, let's move into this next slide.
So in terms of advantages to modular construction, there are so many, but the one thing here is it's actually two things. There's a parallel path between on-site and off-site construction. So your foundation is being installed while the home is being constructed in a warm, dry, factory location inside, right? Everything's safe, free from harm. So that's a huge advantage, that parallel path. And the other thing is it's 70 to 90% complete upon arrival, depending on what you're ordering. That's a huge win. It's
a huge win. Even if you were 50% there, I think, but on average, 70 to 90% complete's about accurate. Depends on your market, depends on how custom you are, it depends on what type of building it is. First of all, I mean, commercial buildings can even be more than 70% complete. We know, like with Marriott hotels and some of these other big modular products, I mean, these units are coming. The soap dish is already in place.
Right.
The linens are already on. The door is locked. They have a central location for all the utilities and powers. So the workers never even have to enter the rooms. Yeah. So it just depends. So you can be a lot further along than 70%.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So building modular, right? The best thing to do, and we're gonna end it here and go to Q&A. But talk to other builders, follow other builders online. Ask questions. And education costs money, Jennifer.
Yeah, no matter what.
I say it last time, I'll say it every time. My grandfather always told me, Dave, education costs money. You're either going to go out and try it on your own and get your ass handed to you, and it's going to cost you money. Sorry if I curse if your kids are listening. Or you're going to go to school and you're going to pay for an education. But either way, you will pay. Yeah. So, I mean, that's a very true statement. And I think if you're looking to get into this, ask questions, network, you will find, in fact, somebody this morning just said, this whole industry is like a brotherhood.
It is. And I do love that. Don't be afraid to pick up the phone. Don't be afraid to reach out on LinkedIn. Don't be afraid to just, if you're driving around and you see something happening, pop in. Yeah. Obviously be respectful, but, that's how you learn.
Yeah, especially during a set. If you see a set going, I wouldn't go bother builders and stuff right then. But yeah, definitely stop in, ask questions, whatever it is. So we had 2 questions ourselves going. We had, what hurdles have you had entering modular offsite construction? And we got a lot of comments and stuff to go through. Mm-hmm. And we also had, what hurdles have you had entering modular offsite construction? Or did I just say that? Sorry. Yeah. Why not build modular? What's stopping you?
Exactly.
So let's jump into some of the questions that we have here.
Yeah.
And let's give some shout outs real quick. Look at the list.
Yeah, we have some great friends out there watching today. So thank you for joining us again.
Joel Hutchinson, Chief Executive Officer, Splash Modular. I think you have some comments. We'll get to those. Greg Ugaldi, the immediate past chairman. Love that you tune in, Greg. Thank you so much. It's a lot of means a lot having support. Anthony, listen, dude, you're tried and true. I saw you had some questions. David Tulin, I love David. David and I do some video editing work together, and you may have a chance to meet David next week on our set down there in Long Island. So that'll be great. Andrew, I see. I think we connected, but you haven't accepted my connection. So father, husband, aspiring professional, but I know we spoke. Craig Carter, Diane Fissler, Sean McStay, National Salesman of Canada. Oh, it's Siga. Hey, what's happening, Sean? Guess what? We got Siga coming on Thursday, right? Etienne.
So looking forward
Etienne is coming on and joining us, and that's all about branding and social media and how important it is in this day and age.
That'll be fun.
And then Robert Bex. Robert, always a pleasure having you.
Yeah.
All right, Jennifer, let's see what we have. Let's just go to the top and work our way down.
Yeah. So thank you for the comments,
Diana,
tuning in, becoming a regular, learning something new every time. It's so helpful to get feedback like that. And then we have a question from Joel.
Yeah. So Joel said, doesn't this highlight a much larger issue with the way we design and document? We are front loading this work where it can't be financed. Unfortunately, it rarely works like that.
Yeah, so that's a really great point, Joel. There is a lot of reliance on the planning process, and it depends on how you structure your business and how you work with your clients. Because you're right, typically the mortgage or the financing piece happens a lot later. It depends on how you engage with your clients and some of those financial transactions that you ask for upfront to make sure that you're staying whole for all the good work that's being done.
For sure.
Construction.
For sure. And having the relationships with the finance and the lenders is a huge, huge thing. Don't wait to do that. Have this in place, know exactly what they want. Pre-approvals, we require. I mean, listen, just like a realtor says, hey, you want to go buy something. They want you to have a pre-approval. Get a pre-approval. I don't care if it's residential or commercial. So you're not spinning your wheels. So great question. Thank you very much. Stephen Leffler, real estate consultant. You mentioned client and factory interaction. Who is overseeing governmental agency inspections at the plant by each state or local? Well, I mean, go ahead, Jen, you can answer this one.
Well, we did talk about this in our permitting and engineering episode. So definitely dial back. That was episode 3, right? So all of those inspections, or I should say many of those inspections, happen at the factory to a national level, essentially, because of where these factories are shipping to. So a lot of that work is done in the factory while the modules are being built, really leaving a handful of inspections to be done on site when the modules finally do arrive.
Yeah, and there's several inspection companies across the country that the states outsource this to. PFS, NTA. I mean, we could probably go down a list, but those are 2 of the bigger ones. So there's third-party inspections happening at the manufacturing, and they're going to put their seal of approval on it when it ships and what have you. So all right.
Does a factory charge for review of your project modular architectural drawings? Another great question by Steven. So again, it depends on your relationships with the factories, how you engage with them.
It does.
And just, again, how much work is everybody willing to do without a financial transaction? What may have been true yesterday may not be true tomorrow. But what I will say here is that one of the most important things you need to come to an understanding with your client early on is the true budget. And we just had a conversation with another builder yesterday about this, where clients really don't understand what to put into that budget, what that budget really covers. Make sure you're talking apples to apples with your client, because they might just be thinking about the house.
Right.
And in your mind, you're thinking about the total scope of work. So when they come to you and they say, oh, I have, a budget of X, and in your mind as the builder, you're thinking, well, it's really 2X. Make sure you're talking apples to apples and really talking about the same thing.
Yeah, very, very much so. And I think also to add to, your question, each manufacturer is set up differently on how they work with design. If you have your own design and you take it to a factory, a lot of times they're going to review it and look it over, give you some ballpark numbers. But if you truly want to know what it's going to cost you, then it's worth paying the money, because you got to get it into the system. If you're an architect or a designer and you're just drawing in regular AutoCAD or a system that does not work with the manufacturing system, and this is something that we've learned, if you need to get your product into their system. To say, hey, I'm going to shop my 50,000 square foot units around to 5 different factories, you're asking them to do a whole ton of work, which a lot of them are going to do. But for anybody to lock in numbers, you got to get it into their system. At least that's what we've learned.
Absolutely.
They're there to help. Stephen, man, you were busy with questions. Are you familiar with Fannie Mae, MH Advantage, or Freddie Mac, Choose Smart, new houses for land sites? So, I'm just going to say this. I know of a lot of the products that are out there. I'm not very familiar with too many of the Fannie Mae and MH Advantage. I've heard of them. But I couldn't speak intelligently about what the financing options are with those in the terms.
And thank you for those questions, because, it may need to be its own episode where we talk about financing and how this all comes together. Yeah.
And I think what we'll do is give me a thumbs up if we should do that. And we can actually have an expert in the field. We can have Tom Coronado come on from Citizens. He does this all over the country, and he wears a cowboy hat, which is cool. To me, it's cool anyhow. So, Tom Coronado, shout out. If you need Citizens Bank, I can hook you up if you need somebody that really understands lending in the offsite construction. He speaks at a lot of the events, a lot of the trade shows. So great guy down to earth. Anthony Good, Procore. Okay, I know Procore. That's definitely a system that's out there. So thanks for sharing that as far as a single integrated, what did you call it? Single source document. Yep. They have a program. Every PM needs to raise the volume on this part of the presentation. I'm not sure what part that was, but maybe it was pay attention to detail.
Yeah, and I think the planning process and the pre-construction meetings.
Funny, Anthony.
And I have to say there have been moments in time where I felt like I had a big bullseye on my back when, we meet with builders and we talk about this segment, because it's hard, right? Everybody is so busy building, right? Everybody's busy.
Super busy.
But I think once you do one or two of these, reviews, you'll see it's worth it.
Yeah, for sure. That's a good one. I like it. All right. Hurdles. Local contractors are unfamiliar with the delivery of a house coming onto the site. Well, you know what? That's absolutely true. Modular and offsite is not the prevalent way to build. But this is where the education comes in. This is where taking the time to walk through the project and them understanding what's happening. And I highly suggest that you don't just meet with the plumber by himself and the electrician I highly suggest you bring them all together, to include the site excavator, contractor, utilities, and sit down in a room and have this conversation. You will be so surprised of what happens. 9 times out of 10, we've just sat back and you're like, oh my God, they just figured it all out on their own. And then you just guide them. So great question. You got to bring them in. You got to bring them in early. And there is a little bit of a learning curve. But we always say, especially with a new trade, when somebody's hiring them, we tell them, listen, you're going to win some, you're going to lose some. We build, X amount of homes. It's going to be a learning experience for you on these. But hey, listen, we'll get through it. Let's win some, lose some, and just have an open relationship with them. And you'll find most trades will want to work with you, especially if you pay them on time.
Yeah, for sure.
That's a big thing. All right. What else do we have? Does factory test the building envelope blower test leak prior to payment and delivery? So, I can answer this because I do a lot of the field stuff. Most of the blower door tests are done in the field, right? What they do at the factory, yes, they can blower door test to see where their ceiling is, but the real proof is in the pudding when it comes to the field. So if you have a project that is in a high energy HERS rating area where you have to meet a certain rating, the HERS scale, I was going to say, but the HERS scale is different in every state. So what may be a 3 here, it could be a 7 somewhere else. So you have to really understand what that is. And if it's super important to you, yes, you can ask the factory to do that. But the real test is going to be on site.
And there are some third-party certifications that you can get at the factory, where some of that will be done at the factory, but we just find it easier to get an accurate read once on location. Yeah, for sure. So we're going to fly through a couple of these other ones. Yes, thank you, Anthony. I think we will do a set crew episode and a crane specification episode. Maybe we can bring in some guests on that one to talk about it. That'd be fun.
I think it'd be a lot of fun. Stephen, in California, FBH or Modular must get state approval for local planning to accept and issue a permit, typically 3-month wait, and then I give drawings to planner for review. So, yeah, it just depends on your municipality. There is that, but that's where you're trying to make up your time on the site work, and if you're sitting waiting for review just for the plans and state approval, right, then that goes back to a few episodes before, because that's not just for you. I mean, that happens in the Northeast a lot as well.
Yeah.
You just need to change your process. We get to the bones of the structure first. When we know we have a client in an area like yours, get to the bones of the structure, focus on the fine details of trim, color selections, and all that later in the design process. Just focus on the bones and get that to the state for the stamp of approval, because you can always adjust, typically you can adjust electrical and, flooring and things of that nature. Right. So I can't remember what episode that was. It was in the design episode, I think. Mm-hmm. All right. If I recall correctly, New Jersey localities tend to request a state inspection approval as well. I was letting Cooper know that an episode on setting and crane specs would be okay. I guess you were talking to somebody else. Yes, that's true. And Cooper, they're calling us Coops Roost. I don't know. All right. Here's the last one. I received a set crew recommendation from a crane company. And this is from Craig Carter, by the way. Received a recommendation from a crane company. What questions should be asked to vet the set crew? How are set crews typically paid? Per box, day rate, complexity of home? What would you say average set crew cost is per home in dollars? All right, there's a whole lot there.
Yeah, so definitely we'll want to do a deep dive onto these components so that everyone can plan accordingly and vet their service providers accordingly. There are no one size fits all answers to those questions. We were just talking to a builder about it yesterday as well. How some, Dave talks about this all the time. Every 50 miles you go, the rules kind of change, costs change, permitting changes, zoning changes. So we'll do a deeper dive into that. But just keep in mind, your factories are a great point of reference in terms of set crews and cranes, as are other builders who are in this world. So we can't stress it enough. If you're not part of the MHBA or MBI,
or the Building Systems Council, NAHB,
the BSC, these are all easy go-to resources where you can start some of those partnerships and those relationships and ask around, right? Referral. But one thing I will tell you, the good ones are busy. They're super busy. So just keep that in mind when you're planning a project. Yeah,
for sure. And, again, set crews. The factories have their ones that they like. Don't ever know if it's for cost reasons or if it's quality reasons. Mm-hmm. I think the best people to ask when you talk to a set crew is ask who their biggest builders are, find out who the builders are, talk to those builders. Are they happy? And they may say, yeah, we're very happy, but hey, you just got to make sure you drill this home each time. Yeah. Because the set crews have laborers as well. I mean, it's a tough job, man. And I have to tell you, the guys that do it day in and day out are really good, but they're also fighting the labor pool issue as well. And sometimes that can be a challenge for all of us. Yeah. So I think that's all the questions, Jennifer.
So many good ones this
That was
week.
A good one. I mean, look at that. That is awesome. So listen, what do we have coming? We got Housing Innovation Alliance. That's my thing, right? I just Housing Innovation Alliance staycation starts tomorrow. So we've been putting out some posts to that. So definitely check that out. We're going to be doing some live feeds with some guests there tomorrow. But this whole thing's about innovation and thought sharing, and there's breakout rooms, and it's all virtual. Yeah. So it's going to be really cool. I highly suggest that you go check it out. Housing Innovation Alliance Staycation is where you go, and you can sign up and register. Mm-hmm. And then again, Thursday, we have Etienne Gubler from CEO North America from SIGA on with Miles Biggs Ideas with us on Thursday.
Here's what is so cool about this. We talk every time about Earth Day. This is the 50th anniversary of Earth Day this week, which is a pretty big deal. I like to celebrate it in offsite construction. It's one of the reasons why I'm in this business, because it is a greener, better way to build for our planet and our people. But we talk about this all the time. We bonded over plastic bags from the grocery store.
Oh yeah, Etienne. He has a new story for you. If you're watching, I was telling her. Yeah, no, I mean, this is what we should have Mark on. Mark Willie, Marcasistas Willie.
Yeah,
Yeah. He is about the earthiest guy I know. I love that guy.
I know, but it is a big deal, right?
Yeah.
Our carbon footprint is getting smaller and smaller as we speak at the moment, so that's a real win.
Yeah.
So all good stuff.
It is. So, hey, everybody, thanks for joining us. I mean, we had a steady crew of people here today, and I think that is absolutely awesome. We will get better at marketing our shows. We've been trying to work out the kinks, but I think we're to a place now where we're just going to start putting out dates, times, and some marketing on when everything's coming so everybody can plan. Next week, we have some big things. We'll be doing it from offsite, so good challenge there. We have Jerry from, is that next week?
Yeah, Jerry McCoffey.
Jerry McCoffey from Integra. We have John Burns from John's Burns Real Estate.
Don't miss that one
on Monday. That's going to be a big one as well, as long as with Jerry. Jerry, I'll be doing this from the field. So if you're watching, this is going to be a tricky one, but I'm sure you're game for it. So, hey, everybody, Dave Cooper and Jennifer. We had a good day today. This is awesome. Thank you so much for joining us. Please send us any messages, any questions you have, and we are here to help. And stay tuned. We have our new website getting ready to launch here real soon. We'll talk to everybody soon. Bye now.
Everyone.
Got to give him the finger. Love it. See you guys.